The word that comes to mind is animism. That to me feels really profound, which is um, tuning into the sacred life force, the wisdom, the consciousness of life around us, knowing that we're never alone. There are always collaborators that surround us. And so I really like to invite folks to know that if we ever need guidance, if we ever need support, if we ever need to learn a little bit more about something, that that connection is always available to us.
Hello, beloved listeners. This is Adrienne, writer of stories and songs, emergent strategist, and pleasure activist living in the land of the Shakori, Skurure, Tuscarora, Eno, and Lumbee peoples. And this is our podcast, How to Survive the End of the World, where we're learning from apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity. When I say our, I'm including my sister Autumn, who's currently on sabbatical. I miss her so much. And in her absence, and basically this was her idea, but in honor of my book, Fables and Spells, I'm going full witch this season and having conversations with some of my favorite witchy people. I will also be reading you little bits and pieces from the book as we go through. Now, what I mean by witch is people who work with the elements of the natural world, including our human nature, to generate more possibilities. This includes all essential natural world engagement with magic or supernatural intentions. Some names for what I'm including in this rich work: shamanism, sorcery, seeing, healing, herbalism, midwifery and doula work, root work and conjuring, ritual and spell casting, astrology and divination, sound baths, altar building, song channeling, the ways we build direct relationships with the realm of the spirit and the holy and the ethereal in our bodies. And my guest today is someone who I've been a fan of on the internet for a while. And this is our first time actually getting to talk in real time. So I'm like really geeked out about it. I have Edgar Fabián Frías here with me today, a multidisciplinary artist, educator, psychotherapist, and brujex, and a non-binary Virarica artist. And Edgar, I'm so geeked out to have you here. I think you're such a vibrant life force. And I always love to just start off the conversation with, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so honored and excited to be able to connect with you. Also, having been such a fan and someone who has received so much medicine and guidance and support from your words and your practices, and
Oh,
just such a gift to be on this podcast. So I'm just thrilled to be here.
I'm really excited to be here with you. And I'm having this very sweet day today where I like got in my body before I got out of bed. Like I did this, a friend of mine taught me how to do this abdominal massage. And so I've been starting my days with that. And it's also the day that Harry Belafonte passed. And so I've been sitting with a lot of sweet like memories and seeing other people's memories about his incredible life force and legacy. So it's been like this kind of big tender day of just gratitude and some grief, you know. Um and you know, I use the word witch, and I've just been like, I'm calling all the witches in. And I'm aware that it's not necessarily the language that everyone would use for identifying the work that they do, although brujex often is direct translation of that, way of understanding. But I wanted to ask you, how do you identify the work that you do?
Yeah, so I definitely connect a lot with the word brujex or brujekis, and
Mhm.
really see it as connected to my, ancestry from Mexico, and also the fact that I am connected to some indigenous communities that I'm going to maybe share a little bit about in a second. And I also see it as part of like being connected to Chicanekis and Latinx culture and history, and really feel like that's been a big part of my own introduction, and also the different webs that I traverse is, that are connected to what we would now see as Brujequis or
Hmm.
Brujex culture.
Beautiful. I love that. When did you realize, or do you remember when you first realized that you were drawn to the work of Brujequis?
Yeah. So, I love that you brought up the body because I really have felt so much of this in my body. I'm someone who really feels spirit and energy. When it's here, I get tingles. I feel like I'm being
Yes.
tethered into the earth. I feel like I'm floating. There's so many ways that it shows up. And
Mm.
I have always been a dreamer. I've always
Uh-huh.
received messages in dreams. So when I was really young, I had some really profound moments where I was visited, and I see it as my ancestors coming to share information,
Mm.
guidance, love with me. One of my most profound moments of like really experiencing this was I was studying abroad in Leeds in England,
Uh-huh.
and I was doing an art program, and I was woken up at like 4 in the morning and just heard drums in my head. And I really kept seeing this image of a fire being tended
Mhm.
and heard from my ancestors that I had a special calling. And, at that time, I was in school and I was like, I'm in art school. Like, what does this
Like, okay,
mean?
boo. When?
Right.
Wow,
And,
that's
that was
beautiful.
the beginning, I feel, of a big journey. And while I was in England, I was able to connect with some queer and trans squatters that were living in like some abandoned houses,
Oh,
or
yeah,
even
yeah.
there was some that were like in a nunnery, and they were all practicing witchcraft and magic. And I grew up Jehovah's Witness, so for me
Ooh,
it was like
wow.
such a like other way of living. And so
Yes.
it really opened my eyes to other practices, and it got me so interested and excited to learn about shamanism, curanderisme, and started to really look at how many communities have connected with the divine, with
Mm.
nature, with plants. And that's also been a big part of my practice. I would say that, being Birarica, having family that's from Zacatecas and Jalisco, I have a deep connection with plants, animals,
Wait, slow us
crystals.
down. Slow us down.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me that. So, Birarica, where does that fall in all of this? And what is it? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in my 30s
Mm-hmm.
when I was finally able to have a conversation with my father about our ancestry.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up, identifying as Mexican,
Okay.
right? Or Latinx. And it wasn't until my 30s that my dad spoke to me about our ancestors and the fact that we have many practices that I had never really known about.
Wow.
And it all came because of a dream I had of a crystal calling to me in the mountains.
Wow. And
Yeah.
you asked him about it?
So what ended up happening was my partner and I decided to go on hikes,
Mm-hmm.
and we found some crystals, and one of those crystals sent me a message. And it was in trying to understand that message that I was guided to speak with my father. And the
Wow.
first thing he said to me was, "Oh, wow, this is something that your grandfather used to do before we moved into the village. He
Wow.
always spoke with crystals." And he then told me that crystals have ancestors in them and they call you to them, and that they
Mm.
sometimes visit you in your dreams. So
Wow.
this was one of those moments where I just felt like a record skip in my whole life,
Mm-hmm. That's
Because,
incredible.
as I said, I had really connected with witchcraft through the queer and trans community, and I had also been visited a lot by ancestors throughout my life.
Wow. This is beautiful. Um, I really love how you're speaking of all this. A lot of why I wanted to do this podcast was to just create a very large space in which we could talk about all the ways these practices have manifested in our different lineages and intuitively, in our bodies. And I keep hearing this dance between something called me that I felt from within. And then I also was able to pair that with folks from without who were like teachers and guides and held some of the memory that I needed in order to know what my own story was. Um, so when did you first feel that you were like practicing this work? And was it like, oh, it's an intuitive thing, I'm just doing something? Or was it, I felt invited to a formal lineage and I started to study in that lineage and then I was doing it, or somewhere in between?
I think it's a little in between.
Uh-huh.
I definitely had many moments of synchronicity where I was invited to, for example, officiate ceremonies, to be invited to hold space.
It's like
I
other
started,
people were seeing you.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I started to do like therapy work and healing work, and also started to get invited to read tarot. And so there were ways that I was being called by community, by different folks.
Yeah.
And then there were also moments where I met some really powerful elders and learned even about folks who are connected to my Bidarica heritage that
Mm-hmm.
have I've been able to like really learn from them both through books and through reading and
Mm-hmm.
through searching on the internet through
Yeah.
archival work and also by having direct relationships as well. And I think that's also when I really started to step more fully into the role of being a witch or brujequis and started to offer, support and started to connect with folks in my practices. So I definitely feel like it's been
A little
um,
both.
ad hockey. Yeah, I like that word. Yeah.
And are there people that you claim in your lineage that you're like when you think about like the way that I do this work, it's like this person, this particular
Mm.
ancestor, this particular teacher?
Yeah, there are a couple of folks. Yeah. A couple of one person I can really think of that has been really profound is Jose Benitez Sanchez, who's an incredible Maracame medicine person from
Mm,
my community that is also like a visionary artist and an activist, someone that I've been able to be introduced to by this incredible researcher named Diana Negrin that's working at UC Berkeley.
okay.
And that to me was one of those big moments of making a connection between my activist work, my artwork, my healing work, my community organizing work. And also, there have been other Maracame, other medicine people, like, there's also Doña Chila, who's someone who I really connected with and who was um, a big part of my like learning to connect with Tatebari, that is the fire god
Uh-huh.
of my people, and Mama Chali really speaks a lot about your inner fire, and that's been a big guidance
Mm,
for myself of working with that inner fire, the inner will. I feel like her work also with Gayumari, which is a sacred deer ancestor, has also been really profound as well.
hmm.
And someone else who's been really big for me too has been Maria Sabina, who is a Mazatec priestess who also worked a lot with sacred medicines and with artists and musicians. And so those are a few folks that I feel like have been
Yeah.
like ancestral tethers and connections that I've been really
Yes.
grateful to be able to find in my life.
I love hearing those names and hearing a little taste of what they've brought into the world. I feel like it's so important for people to know that all the work that we're doing is rooted in these lineages that both are like formal, like official, like I went to train somewhere, and then informal, and then ancestral and lineages of learning. Like I'm like, I have a whole set of ancestors. I just am like, you're an ancestor in the lineage of my work. There's something about the way you showed up in the world that um, is imprinted in me so deeply and is a part of how I want to show up in the world. So, one of the things I have found really moving about the way you work is you seem to cast your spells a lot through the art that you create. And it feels very much like living, breathing, active art. And so I wanted to ask you, what are some or all, as much as you want to share, about the ways you do your witchy work? And how does being an artist interplay with the ways that you shape as a witch, as a brujex?
Yeah, yeah. Art is really central. I feel
Mm,
like I had most profound experiences as a young person through art, where I
Uh-huh.
was really um, what I now would consider like entered into altered states of awareness through art practice. And I definitely, from an early age, got the sense that art was a medium to be able to share energy, spells, intentions. And so it's been a big part of my practice. And as you have shared, I've also um, really sent out a lot of these spells on the internet and
Yeah.
through museums, through
I mean, tell me a
under.
little bit about this internet spell casting because I feel like you and I are up to some parallel work, right? That
Yes.
it's like, in a lot of ways, the internet is this vacuumous void space and full of trolls and bots and full of bad news and full of, you know, folks not necessarily behaving their best. And then I think that both you and I are like, I'm still gonna cast some love and some positivity and some strong intention and some good fire into that space. So tell me a little bit about how do you set out like, okay, I'm gonna make a spell for the internet today? Like how do you do the work? When do you know you want to share it or not share it? Like how do you navigate all that?
Yeah, I think it varies.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you're saying because I do feel like the internet. I felt very, even though I've had a lot of connections in the internet, I have felt very like excluded from
Mm-hmm.
it as a space. As you said, there's a lot of trolls. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of these spaces are not designed for people like us,
Yep.
and it's really also opened up this space of potentiality where I can take some risks and bring some
Yeah.
things in that are connected to my sacred practices. And some of the spells that I've shared have come from moments where I have felt into my communities and really felt like, oh, wow, we are needing something today, or
Yeah.
I'm needing something today to
Yes.
really transmute, contain, hold some of this emotion or energy that I'm sitting with. And that's been a big part of me
Yeah.
bringing it into that space is being wanting to connect and to share and seeing the impact that it's had and the connections that it's made has been really profound for me.
That's beautiful. And so you do the work at that level, and then you also do work that is like exhibited in museums and part of your teaching practice. And yeah, can you just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've had the honor of taking my art to different museums and galleries to showing it in underground spaces. I My background is in like the DIY punk scene. That's also like a big part of my lineage is
Mm,
connecting with folks who make space, who organize, who create space
yes,
where it's needed.
great.
And because of that, I've also been able to hold and host artist residencies, workshops, spaces for transformation. I am also a therapist in my practice too. So I have a private practice
Mm,
where I work with people and I've done healing and therapy like experiences for folks.
yeah.
Uh, so I've really like, I think one of my kind of ways of working as a witch is that I'm really wanting to be slippery. I'm wanting to move in between disciplines and
Yes.
ontologies and worldviews. I think it's really important to weave webs where colonization has regimented or created dislocation or
Mm.
disruption.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think the more I turn my attention and scholarship to this work, the more I understand we're holding the world together. That um there's people who work in the realm of what can be seen and what is tangible and pick upable, sellable, buyable, And then
Right.
I feel like there's this other set of us who a lot of our work is in the unseen. It's like that I feel a tremble across my spine and I feel a grief in my heart. And then I know there's a song that I have to sing that is not for me to keep or for me to, perfect even. Sometimes it's just like, sometimes it's just I'm by myself and I just need to sing the song and that's the assignment. And sometimes it's, here's a piece of writing and it's for others. And it actually took me a while to get comfortable with that because I do have this other side of me that's like a perfectionist and a writer who wants to make things, whatever perfect means, right? There's something in me that's like, wait, I need to edit that and edit that. And then there's this other side that's like, no, something's happening in this moment and it needs word magic in this moment. And your responsibility is just to deliver that, right?
Right.
And I really appreciate how all of that feels like it's in the realm of the unseen and trying to put something on paper that I know even as I'm putting it down may or may not ever be understood, and it can still do its work, right? It can still do the invisible work of connective weaving and tissue, but the tissue that holds the body together, right?
I love that you're saying this because it makes me think of two things. One, I feel like a big part of my practice is divination and being
Mm-hmm.
able to tap into the unseen and
Mm-hmm.
connect with the unseen. And
Do you do that primarily through tarot, or do you do other? What are all your divination
oh, yeah.
practices?
So I'm very expensive. I would say I
Yes,
read,
baby.
yeah. I read the clouds, the branches, animal
Mm.
messengers, and I hear, thoughts from people. I see people's auras.
Mm.
Definitely use tarot. And I've also used oracle decks as well.
Mm-hmm.
Bibliomancy has been really exciting.
Yay.
And also just knowing that, staying open, witnessing, connecting with life.
I keep trying to be like, okay, what are things that my listeners may or may not know? So bibliomancy is working with books and picking up a book, opening it to a page and reading that page with the eye towards what can I learn or what message is being shared with me through this text.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think of it as a kind of cosmic curation, right? It's like, oh, the world is constantly showing us so much and being able to sift through and feel for and hear what is for you is a big part of it. And then what is for you that's for the collective.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're bringing in that word curation because I do feel like that feels so in alignment with the way things show up or get
Mm-hmm.
presented by the divine in
Mm-hmm.
your life. And I wanted to really share also what you were saying earlier around having a message for others and sometimes not knowing if it's coming in the right form or if it
Mm-hmm.
should be shaped or edited. And it makes me think a lot about worked with somatic psychotherapists in the practice of Hakomi and also in the practice of internal family systems as a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mentor named Donna Roy, who she shared with me this technique that I work a lot with in my therapy practice, which is if something comes knocking 3 times during a session, you bring
Beautiful.
it in
That's
no matter
beautiful.
what. And so
Yeah.
it's really taught me, like, that sometimes messages do come in and they might not logically make sense or they and
Yep.
yet when you share them, like, other people get so moved
Mm-hmm.
and it touches something that's so profound. And so it's really taught me to trust that when it comes in.
Yeah. I feel similarly. I mean, I last night I was sitting in my bathtub and I had been having one of those days where I'd been scrolling a bit too much and I was like, okay, it's dark, it's quiet. This is what I need right now. It's just to be in the zone. And then the song started coming. And as it was coming, but it kept kind of stumbling. And it was like, you need to be recording this. And I was like, what? I'm not
Mhm.
recording. I'm in the bath. Like I'm minding my business in my bathtub. Like, and I was like, no, 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 this isn't, you need to record. And so eventually I was like, okay, just give in. And I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to record this because I don't know what the song is yet. Like it hasn't come through. And then as soon as I pressed record and started, I was like, okay, I'll share it. Then the whole song just came like in one little fell swoop, right? And it was like, this is a little song about being on the internet too much and how you have to turn it off. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to post this and then get back to my business of taking my bath. Um, and I'm trying to trust that kind of stuff more and more often, that both trusting the knocking,
Yeah.
trusting that the way I'm meant to do this is to do it in partnership with a creative force that is larger than myself and has a sense of how to use me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. That even though my job is pulling together and curating the ingredients of the spell, I'm also one of the ingredients of the spell.
Yeah.
right? Like I'm the binding glue, or maybe I'm the mixing bowl or something, but I'm part of it and not apart from it. And so I don't get to necessarily control everything about how the spell gets deployed, right? It's like your job is to deploy. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that is like the work of being an oracle, a channel,
Mhm.
someone who does connect with spirit and is that receptacle, right? And is a collaborator with the
Yeah.
divine. And I love that you shared that, and I'm so excited to listen to that because I feel like I could really use that medicine also.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you because I posted it and I was like, this is so weird, Adrian. But then I was just like, well, as long as, and I also try to say to myself, as long as it helps one person, then it's multiplied its impact. So because it all helps me, it always helps
Yes.
me. And then I'm like, if it helps one other person, which a lot of spell work is that intimate, like I'm just doing a spell with one other person or for one other person. And I think this is probably true for you as well. Some of us are drawn to do work that is happening at a collective level. And so I see your artwork that way, that you're like, I'm drawn to cast spells that are going to be experienced by the collective, and the impact of them will be a collective impact. Does
Yeah.
that resonate for you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Mm.
I feel like some of the bigger projects that I've done in museum spaces or in spaces where they're being more recorded or historicized to me feel that way, where I'm
Yeah.
receiving like messages that feel both personal and collective. And I also feel that way, of course, with the spells I share on social media, because so many people affirm,
Yeah.
reshare,
Yeah.
repost. It becomes this collective web that we're all holding together. And it just feels like such an honor to be able to be in that place where you're able to really tether something to an image or a word that really speaks to a felt sense or an
Yes.
emotion that a lot of folks are connecting with.
I really appreciate that. It's for me, it's one of the most liberating things to create in this way, because for whatever reason, if I think I'm performing, then I get all in my head and I can't figure out how to get it out. I can't figure out how to do it, or I go way off pitch, or, just something happens. I'm like, ah, ah. And if I'm just like, I'm doing spirit work, like I'm doing something that spirit has asked me to do, it's like I go to this whole other place. It doesn't work if I think of it as performance. Although I know some people who do sacred performance work, and that also is something, I don't think there's something bad about performance. But for me, performance and perfectionism, the root goes down into the same place. And so I have to be like, yeah, this is not a performance. This is a sacred ritual. And right now the ritual is a song in my bathtub, or it's a piece of
Yes.
art that I'm looking at from you.
Hello, beloved survivors. It's me, Autumn. So, as you know, our show does not run ads. That's intentional. We are brought to you entirely by you, by your support, you cute, sexy thing. If you support us on Patreon already, thank you. You're awesome. I'm not talking to you. If you don't support us on Patreon already, I'm talking to you, and now is a great time to consider joining. We've got t-shirts, we've got tote bags, we have mugs, we have original art by my sistre, and also Adrian and I do these really fun Ask Us Anything episodes, which are exclusively available to patrons, and where we answer questions that are exclusively sourced from patrons. So, to become a patron today and support the longevity of this show, please go to patreon.com/endoftheworldshow. Thank you. Okay, let's get back into it.
Okay, so we are in this apocalyptic moment. We're in this moment that for many people is extremely overwhelming. And, I keep making the connection that like the amount of distress people feel right now is directly related to the amount of privilege that they walk with. So I'm like, if you walk with a lot of privilege, you actually might be experiencing a pretty high degree of distress right now because you're like, what the hell happened to the world, the normal, good, easy world that I was in? Because now hard things are reaching people, even if they're privileged, right? But I think that for folks who have been living with less privilege, this is a moment that feels somewhat familiar, or where they're like, I have a sense of what to do right now. So I feel like no matter where people sit in that, more privileged, less privileged, I wonder what you think are the witchy skills that you wish everyone had for this moment, this apocalyptic time.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like the word that comes to mind is animism. That to me feels really profound, which is um, tuning into the sacred life force, the wisdom, the consciousness
Mm-hmm.
of life around us, knowing that we're never alone. There are always collaborators that surround
Mm.
us. And so I really like to invite folks to know that if we ever need guidance, if we ever need support, if we ever need to learn a little bit more about something, that that connection is always available to us. And we can turn towards our own breath, towards the clouds, plants, crystals, animals, the earth, the land. And there's so much wisdom there,
Mm.
and that's always available. And in a similar way, I also feel called to share that I've really seen the power and the magic of what I like to call nonlinear psychic collaboration.
Mm.
That there are ways that we can set intentions, maybe send out a few like energetic messages to our loved ones,
Yeah.
and that we can organize, we can co create, we can really strategize in etheric
Mm.
realms.
And
Yeah.
what does it look like when we're doing that?
I really see it as tuning into the power of our imagination, of
Yeah.
our connection, the feeling we have when we love someone, when we, create with someone.
Yeah.
And so feeling that connection and then receiving and rejoicing when you are able to meet up with that person and you realize that you've been traversing, that you've been
Mm.
sharing,
Yeah.
and that all of a sudden you have a plan that has come together in front of your eyes and you're wearing the same color clothing, you're thinking about the same things, you feel like you've been having conversations
Yeah.
outside of the physical dimension. That's how it's shown up in my life, and it's happened so many times now that I see
Yes.
it as a deep resource now.
I love this because there's an experiential certainty that comes with a lot of this work where, like, I think personality wise, I'm not actually oriented towards this work. Like, maybe not even personality, but like, I'm a fact based person in a lot of ways. I'm like, I need proof. How do you know? How are you sure? I don't naturally just trust the universe. So of course my life's work is like building trust, right? And and so then there's experiential certainty that comes from me where I'm like, this keeps working, right? Like the thing that often draws me into a practice is somewhat whimsical. But then once I get there and I start doing it, I'm like, well, this keeps working. My tarot cards really resonate. And my astrological readings like really open up new ways of understanding what's happening. And my spells really shift how I experience the world and how I experience my power inside of it. And they're constantly putting me in touch with like, what is my actual agency? Um, and and so I'm like, I don't have doubt about any of these things anymore because it just keeps happening. The synchronicity keeps happening. And the feelings, I love that you talked about the feeling of rooting into the earth or the tingles, because I'm like, that stuff is so consistent and I'm learning to understand what the signals mean. And it makes it worthwhile to be present. And I think, so the last question I have is advice on doing work while healing. And I've been really coming into this awakening that like I do a lot of moving energy through my world, and I do a lot that requires me to be very present. And I do a lot of numbing because the world is really overwhelming to me. And so right now I'm in this period of like turning and looking at my numbing behaviors for the sake of being a better vessel and for the sake of having compassion for my humanity. Because it's almost like I compartmentalize. I'm like, I'm either being great and doing the great collective offering, or I'm this like lazy person who can't stop eating. And I'm like, what is that? I'm healing, and I'm healing so that I can really see the wholeness. Right. So,
Yeah.
and the work is not stopping. Like, if anything, it's coming more quickly and with more certainty and with more like, I dare say urgency. Like a lot of times right now, my poems or other things will come and they're like, you need to share this now, which hasn't happened to me for maybe 5 or 6 years. Like for a long time, I've been in a phase where I could write and I could be like, I'll put that out in a little while, or maybe I'll save it for a book or something. And right now, again, I'm in this period where it's like, you need to be a direct channel, even though in some ways I feel like I'm coming undone from how I have been. Right. So my question to you is a little bit of guidance on how do you navigate doing your Brujex work while also healing? Because that's the other thing I know is like everyone's healing all the time. So yeah, how
Yeah.
do you navigate that?
I definitely turned, towards community and towards other healers for support.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it is so important to befriend and be in relationship with some of these parts that show up as you're
Mm.
sharing, the parts of us that want to manage, want to perform, want to heal, want to share with the
Yes.
world, and also the parts of us that care for us, that protect us, right?
Yeah.
That keep us in a place where we can continue to do the work that we do. And it's an ongoing journey, but I feel like I've really been trying to build more trust and compassion and love for the parts of myself
Yeah.
that have protected me, even if the ways that they've protected me maybe haven't felt right or I've judged them. I've also
Ah,
even tried to build love and connection with the parts of myself that judge and that criticize.
I love
Be-
that.
because I feel like these are all parts of myself, right? And I've learned them all in many different ways. And so I feel like the word that comes up is like integration or consilience. It's
Yes.
a bringing together. And in some of the healing work that I do, I try to get some of these parts to speak to each other, to get to
Yes.
know each other better.
Yes.
Because sometimes some of these parts can like hide from each other, or they have vendettas, or they don't like each other, right?
That's
And
right.
so that's been really profound. So receiving that kind of support. And it's really giving me a lot of compassion for where folks are,
Yeah.
knowing that we're all in many aspects of this journey, and that, as you said, the life doesn't stop.
Yeah.
The onslaught of information and also, psychological and imaginal warfare that happens is really
Yes.
real. And so we're all navigating this. And so it's really helping me build more and more compassion for myself and also just for the state that a lot of other folks are into.
I really resonate with that, Edgar. Like I feel like almost all of my judgment has fallen away. Like I still hold a significant amount of judgment for my opposition. I'm just sort of like, why are you so anti-earth? But even that, I'm like, everyone is as they were shaped to be. And it actually takes a lot to step out of the shaping and the molding and figure out how to be in alignment with this place. And so I'm like, okay, like when someone is steeped in vitriol and steeped in supremacy and steeped in those things their whole lives, I hold a judgment for the system and that's steeping. And then I, try to stay in touch with the part of me that's like, I pray also for their liberation. And my work is to do the ongoing work of my liberation. right? Because I tell you what, when I was in my 20s, I was just like, I am gonna fix the world. I'm gonna fix the world one by one. Like I was just like so clear that my job, that I was like, I got it together and I'm gonna figure it out. And now I feel the opposite. It's just sort of like, oh, I'm just, I think I'm trying to think of who said this. Some wise person talked about how we are the masterpiece of our lives, like the fundamental creation, the fundamental piece of art is ourselves, and that's what we're working on over the course of our lives. And art can inspire other art, so like whatever, however far we get with our self-crafting, that's how we actually interact and inspire others, and they inspire us. It's like when I look up to someone, and like what I'm looking up to is their self-crafting, the work they have done to claim themselves and be themselves. And I really look up to that in you. I see the freedom that you have carved out for yourself to exist. And I think it's very serious. Very good job.
Thank you.
Because you are an artist, we have this section called Top Culture, which I mostly haven't been doing this session. We get into conversations, but Top Culture is a way of asking people, like, what are you into right now? Like, what art are you looking at? What books are you reading? Or maybe there's a piece of music you're listening to over and over again, or just, is there something in the culture for you that's like, this right now is my jam, and it's like, giving me life?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes up is Indigenous futurism.
Yes.
It's definitely something that I'm just so inspired by, in seeing how it is emerging in other people. That's something that is so thrilling, to kind of redefine history, to imagine history and the future, and to imagine ourselves into other dimensions and spaces, and to also reclaim what it means for us to share about our cultures and our histories, what it means for us to also imagine new understandings that are blended or emergent. And I love Legacy Russell, who wrote, Glitch Feminism. And that book has been really impactful for me as someone who works a lot within the internet and digital cultures. And so working with Glitch, working with, ancestral magic, bringing it into the contemporary, and also bringing it into spaces where the people who maybe designed some of these places maybe didn't imagine this existing. That to me has been really profound. And
I love that.
Yeah.
I'll share that for me, it's so the opposite in some ways, but so for a long time I've been really into dating shows and like love and dating shows. I still rock with those. But I've been getting into sports lately. I've been getting into basketball, and it started out with not the WNBA, but the college women's basketball playoffs. And I was watching what was happening between them, and all kinds of like representations of women badassery, like just watching these people on the court just be in each other's face and fight and be excellent and be physical. And it just touched into something I didn't even know I was longing for, to just be able to like roar ferociously and be excellent, like it's just really healing to see. And then I started tuning into WNBA, now I'm watching NBA. So I kind of backed into like, okay, like I don't know, something about it is really calming to my system. That like, no matter what else is going on, they're just these humans who are pursuing excellence inside of their bodies and in teams. And like, I love that about basketball, that they're like, it's really about how the team functions. So I'm like, it's this microcosm of excellent functionality, right? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm very prone to the Golden State Warriors and the way that they move like when they align and pull off a play. And it's just like, you might watch an individual player do something that seems magnificent, but then when you watch 5 people come together and do something that feels impossible, it just something gives me hope. So my top culture lately has been watching
Yes.
basketball, which is also sweet because then I can text my dad and be like, "Hey, Dad, basketball talk," and it's just like, which I know for him is a miracle. He's like, this, I never expected to get this, a child who actually likes sports with me.
Yeah, my partner and I watch a lot of basketball, and it is very soothing. Yeah,
it's so
my partner is like
soothing.
really into basketball, and we watch it a lot. And one thing that what you're sharing, that like group magic that happens where the group starts to communicate in really profound ways. And I see it as very psychic too, because there's like, you have to feel into people and know when someone's going to do something. It makes me think a lot about music also, because I feel music in that way too, where it's a conversation that starts to happen in a nonverbal, somatic, experiential way. It's so moving to see it happen.
Yeah, definitely one of my sweethearts has got me on this path too. And it's like, there's something really sweet about being able to like, just be like, oh, I'm trusting that you're going to be where I'm throwing the ball.
Yeah.
I'm trusting that you're going to arrive where I'm singing the note. Like, I'm trusting that, that like when I fall, you're going to catch me or catch what needs to be caught, Yeah. No, I'm so excited about this. I'm like, I keep finding all these other secret, like radical basketball lovers, and I'm just like so into it. Okay. So the piece that I'm going to read today to close us out is called Being with Shadow, and it's on page 69 of Fables and Spells. So I'm just going to read this for anyone who likes to read along, or it helps to read that way. If you have the book, you can pause and listen. Otherwise, you can just be with it. And I think that this should speak directly to our conversation today, Edgar, because I'm really like, again, this is bibliomancy too. Right? Okay, Being with Shadow. Did I ever tell you how everything about humanity makes me so tender? I could be weeping all the time. My eyes see all the darkness. The shadows crawl across the floor, peek from the corners, laugh when I'm laughing, counting it down. They will take it back with the next sentence. I create troughs, threading away from my heart, spilling down my limbs to pulse out, sole of foot, palm of hand, all wide for the ground. In this way, I can open my eyes. Since I was a newborn, people have asked me for direction, and I've almost always felt which way to point. Away from me, away from me. I hear something coming, which is asking me now to receive, to stop letting things go through me, to reawaken the black hole at my center, the part powered by what we lose, what we grieve, and by longing. To reach is to live. To reach is sacred. Be attached to aliveness and nothing else. Trust, when life is done, it will let you go. Yeah. Thank you, Edgar.
Thank you.
It has been a real gift to get to introduce ourselves in this way. Yeah. I'm so grateful for you, and can keep going with your work. If people want to immerse themselves in your work, is the best way to follow you on Instagram? Is there another place, another page? Like, where would you like people to come find you?
Yeah, definitely. I want to invite folks to come and check out my website, edgarfabianfrias.org.
Great.
And there I have links to past works and also current offerings. And I also have a newsletter too, where I share events or ways that you can connect with me. So I definitely would love to invite you into that web as well.
I love that. Okay, folks, go and check Edgar out. Thanks y'all for tuning in again this week, this day. How to Survive the End of the World is produced by Zach Rosen. Our Patreon is patreon.com/End of the World Show, where you can get access to very sweet merch and some exclusive content like Ask Us Anythings with my sister. You can find us on Instagram at End of the World PC. See you next time.
We did it. Yes, let me